Predator Badlands has now finally landed in theaters, and with that, it is time for us to go into full spoilers. So that's exactly what I'll be doing here for you guys, is giving you my Predator Badlands spoiler review, diving into some of the Easter eggs of the franchise, the seeds that they're laying for the future of the series, things I thought they did extremely well, other stuff that fans are kind of pissed about with this movie, but overall just kind of gushing because it's like, we have gotten 3 great Predator movies back to back to back. But of course, this won't just be about my opinion. I definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments section what you loved or what you did like about the movie. Whatever your opinion is, love to hear it down below. Okay, so starting things off, just to reiterate my thoughts on the movie, I absolutely love this film. Yes, it is such a wildly different Predator movie, not just in its tone, but just the way it goes about telling its story. So many risky things were done in putting the Predator as the main character, actually humanizing him a bit, giving him a lovable sidekick, a little cute cuddly creature, shying away from the R-rated tone and going more in the route of an action adventure that could be enjoyed with the family. There's like a lot of things on paper that I totally understand why Predator fans who are diehard on this franchise would go in and go, not my Yautja. But to me, as someone being a little bit more open-minded with this series and also thinking it is time for a refresher, 7 movies in, all the risks and big swings this movie took, I think are setting us for an interesting path for what could come ahead. So let's dive into those interesting things by starting off with the beginning of the movie. So we kick things off right away. The first 5-10 minutes of the movie, you are getting right into the action, meeting Dek the Yautja, his brother that I want to say Kiwi, but it's probably more pronounced Kawi. And both of them are on this like desert planet just fighting off one another and training, and we think, okay, that's what this brother is doing. He's preparing this younger, smaller Yautja that is born a runt, which is smaller and weaker than all his other family members. But that's not stopping the determination Dek has. Although he has a lot to prove himself, he is very eager to show he's worthy enough of his clan that he wants to go after big and bad prey and earn his keep. And this opening, I think, is brilliant for so many different reasons. For one, if you're like fresh into the Predator franchise, the first 5-10 minutes tell you exactly what you need to know about the Yautjas. How much they value hunting, how much they hate weaker and smaller beings, a code that they follow. So newcomers into the series could easily segue in with this being their first Predator film, but also you really grow to like Dek in this opening. It was kind of jarring after they had their little battle and training for the day, where then we just see them in the ship hanging out. You know, he's like probably showered, deodorized, and is now just talking with his brother about, hey, is the cowboy game on tonight? What we watching here, buddy? It was a little weird just to see them not on alert, not actually hunting, because we had never really seen the Yautjas in that type of setting. But I think Dan Trachtenberg was really smart in giving them their own language, forcing that type of vibe immediately on us, because the whole movie lies on the shoulders of Dek, and then going into their father arriving, who appears to be kind of the chief of their clan, and we find out Kiwi and Dek were not sent there to train and prepare for Dek's first hunt. No, the father ordered the older brother to kill his younger brother on this planet, and now the dad's here going, why haven't you done that yet? It was kind of a crazy opening, especially because the older brother just didn't have the heart to do it. And that right there, what I just said, the older brother didn't have the heart to do it. This movie dares to do the risky thing in giving a little bit of heart to the Yautjas, and that's the big part of this movie where I was like, that's going to be hard for a lot of real die-hard Predator fans to get into, because some Predator fans just like them as this super deadly creature that hunts and has one mission in mind, and that's it. I mean, you go through all the Predator movies and there is this real macho vibe. I mean, it's so apparent from like the handshake Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first movie. It's a testosterone-filled movie for sure, but also it's a commentary on toxic masculinity, and I feel a lot of longtime Predator fans have forgotten that commentary, because I'm just gonna say it, there is a good chunk of Predator fans that need a good smacking in the bottom and stop being insecure little babies. I cannot believe we are getting a new Predator movie that is not just refreshing, but has an amazing critic and audience score, about to be the highest Predator movie at the box office. It's honestly a win for the franchise, and there are literally people so mad and creating conspiracies that this is all fake generated paid for hype. Even just going through my comment section of this new Predator movie, I was appalled by some of the words I was reading. I had not seen this type of fan toxicity since the female Ghostbuster movie was announced. But again, I'm bringing that up not to say everyone who dislikes this movie are in the same cesspool of those people. No, I knew that there would just be fans who like their Yautjas a certain way, and that was going to be hard for the movie to sell them on. Because as the movie continues on, they really humanize Deck and they give him an anti-hero persona. So getting back to it here in that opening, when the brother makes that decision to, sorry, Dad, I'm not killing my younger brother. Spending time training with him has really made me grown to like him. I just cannot do it. I feel like even in that way, in that brainwashed toxic masculinity environment that the Predator and the Yautjas have, even Kiwi was okay with him getting killed because he recognized the weakness in him and saw himself as not a real Yautja. Like, that's actually how I see that scene, because he has the choice after his arm is ripped off by his dad and he has the sword by his side and he has his arm that has the little control panel to send Deck off to another planet. He chooses to save his brother's life and knows that means ending his. And that's what Dan Trachtenberg does so cool. There's layers and different nuances to the Yautjas that I've always wanted to explore. I get the argument some fans are making that maybe spending too much time with the Yautjas or peeling back too much layers of their lore demystifies them and makes them not as mysterious and as cool. But again, 7 movies in, I feel there is so much cool things to explore. I don't see the Predator species the same way I look at the Xenomorphs. Because yes, the Xenomorphs have a level of intelligence that make them smart enough to hunt whatever they're going after, but at the end of the day, a Xenomorph to me has a brain in the same line of thinking as a dog, where it is limited in its thoughts, and that one vision, that one narrow mindset of just munching and killing is all the Xenomorph thinks about. When it comes to the Predators and the Yautjas, I just could never see them in that way, because they do have a moral code, their hunting code, their advanced technology, which I want to get into that a little bit later, which it's like, that's proof these are super intelligent creatures with the technology they have. Their ranking system in terms of who's higher up Yautja, who's a lower one, and also just how long they've been doing it. Through all the movies, it's always been assumed the Yautjas have been alive for thousands to thousands of years. So I think finally getting to explore them only makes sense. But okay, we get that awesome opening and Deck is immediately then thrown on Jenna, not Ortega, but Jenna, the planet that is most feared by the Yautjas because anything and everything on it is set to kill you, but also because it is housing one of the most deadliest creatures in the galaxy, the Callisk. And again, Dan Trachtenberg, awesome job for throwing us onto a planet like this, because it isn't just the Callisk we're looking for, all the different alien life and plant life we meet along the way, so fun. From the vines of the trees to exploding caterpillars, eels that shoot out acid, and probably one of my favorite things that they did in this movie, a field of grass where every grass blade was as sharp as a knife. Dan Trachtenberg showed this same kind of creative love to the ecosystem in Prey, where in that movie, the feral predator comes in and starts working his way up the food chain. He doesn't just immediately go after the humans. No, he starts seeing where he fits in. And so I love that the planet Jenna wasn't just about finding the Callisk. It was seeing all this other plant life that is equally a threat to this inexperienced Yautja. It's all stuff that felt like it worked within its ecosystem, and that other things that live in there are perfectly bred for that environment, because we had these like giant mammoth creatures that have no problem walking through the blade of grass because that just fits into their environment. This pterodactyl flying over that is just waiting to set off the traps of these plants that chew off paralyzing venom so that then it can swoop in and just eat its prey like a vulture. Like, I loved all that ecosystem building, and Deck as a hunter having to learn his environment a little bit. But then it was during his travels in the planet that he comes across the synth in this movie, played by Elle Fanning, named Thea. Now, again, like I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, I did have some issues with the amount of humor and just the amount of yapping this synth did. I did like her more as the movie went on, and I got more used to her personality, although I felt it did come off a little strong. Putting that stuff aside, I love the way they handled the Yautja eventually accepting her as helping him in his mission, because although they are humanizing Deck and they're going a different path with him than traditional Yautjas, I still like that he wants to be like his other brethren, like his other species, and not accept too much help. help. I thought about that too when I was like, man, the Yautjas are so advanced. You think by now they probably would have created an AI that could easily kill anything and everything in their path, because in outside lore from the movies, Yautjas don't like to use too much tech because they see that as a weakness, because a real predator should be able to hunt themselves. So the way the synth frames it as in, oh, I'm not helping you, I'm a tool. And isn't it every hunter's job to just use a good tool in their tool belt? I love that explanation, and it made sense then why he grabbed her. Because then she's almost like a Pokedex in this terrible planet where he like asks it, what is that?
Ammonite, the spiral Pokemon, believed to have lived over 2 billion years ago.
And it was also a good explanation for the audience, because I think some people do grow tiresome of just reading subtitles the whole time, but I like that they still mixed it in enough and kept the immersion for the Yautja language. As a side note, this is also where I want to mention about this point in the movie is finally where the title card comes up, Predator Badlands, which I love me when a title card drops well into the movie, a lot like Evil Dead Rise did. There's a lot of cool movies that pull that off, and this one was so close to being a badass one if they didn't add all the little like trademark branding on the logo. Like, I thought that took away some of the aura of the title card. Is that just me? Yeah, the title Predator Badlands is cool, but if you have the copyright logo, 20th Century logo, the Disney logo, I'm like, okay, I'm basically looking at a trademark sticker on a toy right now and not just the cool title card. So work on that next time, Disney. So then once Dek and Thea team up and are put on this journey to go find the callus, I thought the story would remain as simple as that. They'd eventually find it, Dek would fight it, would probably win somehow, and then bring it back to his clan, and all is well. I was not expecting some of the story twists and turns. First little twist involved a little creature that they named Bud that was almost like this monkey looking thing with like a really hard exterior skin. Bud befriends Dek because it saved it from a tree bug, this really giant squid looking thing, causing Bud to then spit on Dek, spit on Dek, spit on Dek. Oh. And I really thought nothing of it, and I was just kind of random, but eventually then when we get to the scenes of Dek fighting the callus, which even that scene in itself, really cool, really awesome action set piece, and they made the callus a very threatening creature. I thought the design itself was already kind of overkill with all the spikes and its giant size, giving it this Wolverine-like ability where it could regenerate and put all its limbs together, even if you cut off its head, made it a much bigger threat. Well, the callus has an opportunity to finally kill Dek, but smells the spit from Bud and stops. This kind of leads us into revealing that Bud is the offspring and a baby version of a callus. And from that point on, the movie just like completely shifts its tone, and it's no longer about hunting down the callus, but instead saving it from Weyland-Yutani, who's also on this planet trying to get the callus because they want to study its regeneration properties, because that would be very useful to them. And so Dek ends up having to become the hero of saving the mother and reuniting it with its child. Okay, that on paper, you tell that to a Predator fan before they have seen the movie, and the way the film earns that story plot point, they would hate it. If that leaked months ago that the Predator was going to be the hero and was actually going to save the big bad creature so it could reunite the mother with its kid, everybody would be like, that's not what a Predator does. That's not a Yautja. What did they do? Ruin this movie. And there's a lot of those things where I'm watching it and on paper it sounds awful and like I would hate it, but as the way it's playing out in the film, it's working for me. Like the little fireplace scene where you have Dek there sitting and he's talking to Thea. He's having little cutesy Grogu-like moments with Bud. It's all stuff that feels very kidified, almost Disney-ish, where you would never think to see a Predator acting cute with another little creature. Even him spilling the beans on his family and trauma and like having a little therapy session. That is stuff that is a risky move, but I think it all worked out. I still think it works and doesn't take away or demystify the Yautjas, because Dek is obviously a unicorn character. He's a runt, he's already hated by his species, has a lot to prove, and is already shown because of these more human emotions he has that led to his brother dying and dad hating him. He's just always going to be different from them. So it doesn't like ruin all the Yautjas. They're still all bloodthirsty, macho big creatures. And heck, even to take it a step further, I was thinking back on a lot of the Predator movies, and this also kind of isn't a new thing. There's been several instances where Yautjas are sort of friendly to another human even before they have earned the respect of killing another Yautja. Like at the end of Predator 2, that's how Danny Glover kind of earns their honor. But you think about Alien vs. Predator, that I know isn't really canon, but you have a Yautja teaming up with a human there. You think about Predators, and at the end of that movie, you have an OG Predator that's wanting to help out the human characters because he just wants to kill another Yautja. Even in another horrible case like with Shane Black's The Predator, there's a whole subplot dedicated to a Predator wanting to warn the humans, help the humans, and that even ends with that terrible Predator killing machine. So I don't know, this idea of like a Predator that goes against his kind isn't that new and has kind of happened a little bit in the past, so that ended up working for me. But okay, then you get to the scene where Deck finally has to go and rescue this callus, but he's all run out of tech, armor, and he knows there's a ton of synthetic androids there that he's gonna have to kill off. I found it kind of brilliant that then Deck becomes one with the planet of Jenna, and like a hunter, uses the resources around him to make him prepare for the fight. And that's when I was like, oh, that's why they had exploding caterpillars, these eels that are supposed to kind of look like the little gun they hold on their shoulder, all this other wild stuff. It was slightly convenient, but come on, that's badass. I mean, you think back to the first Predator movie, and Arnold runs out of weapons, ammo, all that, so he has to use the jungle to fight the Predator back. How cool is it that Deck uses the most deadly planet and uses what the Yautja see as a weakness, his sympathy for other creatures, as an advantage to make himself stronger, equipping himself with all these other deadly animals? Like, dude, that made the Predator so much cooler to me. Was it a little convenient? Yeah, when that like acid eel had like perfect aim and knew exactly where to hit. Yeah, but other things like actually making a whip of the blade grass and using it on people and getting some pretty deadly violent kills, even though it was just on robots, still really cool. He even creates his like hand blade out of just teeth from the forest. I don't know, man. Like, how do you watch that and not think this movie isn't badass? And now here's where I want to talk about who the real villain of the movie is. This other synthetic android that Thea always saw as a sister named Tessa. Now, I mentioned my spoiler-free review. The other issue I had with this version of Ella Fanning's character is whenever it was being menacing, that's when it felt very one-dimensional to me. But I guess that's not even a fair criticism when she literally is a robot, so having like a very strict and stern personality is kind of what they do. The things though I like the most about what they did with her though is really parallel it to Deck. She also is coming from a commander that is telling her you have to be this way, and if you're not, you're dying. A lot like Deck was told, you have to be this ultimate warrior or we're getting rid of you. It was a toxic upbringing that made her the way she was, and I even found it kind of badass when she stole Deck's gun and was using it, and then that allowed us to have the 3 little dots on Deck throughout the movie. I was like, that's kind of cool. She's also in that machine very similar to like Ripley in the Aliens franchise, which again, Dan Trachtenberg did a great job of just utilizing Weyland-Yutani as part of this movie without it feeling like major nostalgia bait or all a huge setup for the eventual Predator vs. Alien movie that they're gonna do, because yeah, they're maybe going to do that down the line, but nowhere in this movie was it directly set up or it felt like that's where they were going. And you know what? I'll also say part of me was so happy with the way this movie went and what they're teasing for the next movie. I don't mind if we still have to wait a couple more films before we get to Alien vs. Predator, because I really like what they're doing right now with the Predator. And man, I was a little upset too whenever at the end Tessa does end up killing the callus, and then Bud, she ends up becoming a little orphan, getting adopted by Deck, and now he has his own clan. To me, another super risky, unexpected move. I mean, just even thinking about the very end of the movie where you have the Predator, an android, and a baby callus by his side, I could easily see diehard Predator fans going, what the heck are they doing? This is so stupid. But Predators do have clans, do they not? So who says the Predator has to have a clan with only other Yautjas? Probably the Yautja code, but Deck is special. Deck is special and different. Bringing us to the end of the movie, where I'm assuming there was a major time jump from when Deck killed off Tessa to by the time he went back to his homeworld so that he can get his invisibility cloak, because that is part of the tradition with Yautjas, is after your first hunt and you bring back the skull of your trophy, you then earn your cloak. And it was the android head of Tessa, and that wasn't good enough for his father, so it led Dek to fight off not just a couple of other Yautjas, but his dad, and obviously win. Now, I was watching that scene, and I was thinking to myself, dude, okay, I get Dek just went through this big coming-of-age journey, and it was even on a dangerous planet for a couple of days, but to me, I was like, that doesn't mean he automatically becomes this amazing fighter, this awesome warrior. I was like, that felt a little convenient, but then you see Bud has grown up a little bit, so it makes me think Dek stayed on Jenna for a little while longer. He was maybe there for a month or two, really honing his skills, preparing himself, and then making the eventual trip where he would be ready to kill off his dad and the other Yautjas, because I doubt Bud grew up that size overnight. Having the film end, but then quickly getting to the mid-credit scene where Dek looks off into the distance, we see a ship approaching, Thea asks, "Who's that?" and Dek responds with, "My mother." And I only had two thoughts in my mind when he said mother. One, finally, after 7 movies, what's about to be 8 movies, we'll get an exploration of female Yautjas. But then 2, oh, female Yautjas, these crybabies online are gonna have a field day. Because for those of you who aren't too familiar with female Yautjas, I wasn't myself and had to do some reading up on it, but female Yautjas have been explored in other media, not including the movies, for decades. The first appearance of a female Yautja happened all the way back in 1993 in the comics with one named Big Mama. This is where the female Yautjas were portrayed as bigger, stronger, more intelligent than male Yautjas. Already there, can you see why they're gonna cry like little babies once they introduce these females? But whatever, we can leave those type of fans in the background and now focus on the exciting potential we have here, because yes, I do think it's about time we meet some female Yautjas, explore a little bit about what that's like and where that could go story-wise. Some of the things I was reading about with female Yautjas also is that whenever a male wants to mate with one, he has to prove himself to the female Yautja, usually through a big hunt. And if the female Yautja actually is not interested or doesn't want it, she can then kill that male Yautja for just coming up to them. That's hot. But also for my diehard fans are people who do get into all that lore and have known about female Yautjas a lot, because it's not just in the comics, they've even showed up in the Predator game. I still think the movie could go a completely different route, and I think Dan Trachtenberg has even shown in his movies he's willing to be slightly loosey-goose with it. It's so funny how the movies have barely explored the Yautja as a species, but there are tons of comics, tons of books that do a lot more expanding of the lore, which is nice and all, and you can think of that as diehard canon, but to me, I don't think it's like the exact Bible to follow when it comes to the movies, because they can, do whatever works for the film. So we really have no idea how they decide to portray the female Yautjas. If anything, throwing off my little fan theories and things I'd like to be explored, the things I always find so interesting about the Yautjas is their technology. I mean, you see how Dek's father and brother acted, although they have a code and they have some sort of intelligence. You're telling me there are Yautjas that sit in a little lab and tinker up with little ice bombs, explosives, little bow and arrows made out of laser? Like, that is some high level stuff. And if your brain is just focused on hunt, kill, be manly, I'm not believing you built that tech. Now, again, if you go to the outside media, the comics explain that sometimes Yautjas steal tech from other species and then reverse engineer it for their own, or because they have been alive for thousands of years, they have made that tech on their own, but because they only care about hunting and also limit themselves with how much tech they're allowed to use, they only build tech to serve hunting, and that's why they still live in like huts and dirts and cave, because they don't care about making a Keurig or a little Roomba or an iPad. If it's not for hunting, they don't care to make that tech. And again, to me, that's interesting stuff I'd like to see explored. Maybe the female Yautjas are the ones who make the tech. That's something they could do in the movies. I also even want to play devil's advocate a little bit. As awesome and as open-minded I'm being right now with where they could go, I do think it is dangerous ground. When they make this next movie, because it looks like they will continue a sequel off Badlands since it's about to make good money at the box office and such a high review score from audiences and critics, some of the things I hope for with the next movie is just tone down the comedy a little bit. Yes, this movie had a lot of good laughs, a lot of good fun, but it was getting to a point where I was like, if we continue doing this comedy, the tone will go to a place that I think will be hard to come back from. 2 is I think we need to have more evil Yautjas was to kind of counterbalance Deck in his kind of good Yautja form. I don't think every Predator should become like what Deck is. Like I said, he's a special, unique case, and I do like him, but if you make every Predator kind of like him, then yeah, I don't think every fan would love that. I don't even know how to handle some of the stuff they've been talking about lately, where they said they really want like Arnold to come back for another movie, and even at one point, the different versions of what Predator Badlands look like, he said his initial idea with Badlands is that he just wanted to have the Predator seen as the good guy so that he could win for once, because yeah, the Predator's always losing in his movies, so he needed to create a story where you would root for the Predator, and his first thought was having the Predator in World War II fighting a bunch of Nazis, which I think could have been a really cool idea, and yeah, you obviously root for the Predator, right? Like, no one in today's world roots for Nazis, right? Right? But he decided not to do that. Then another idea, once he finally decided on this planet in this mission, would be that Amber Midthunder, who was the main character in Prey, would actually be his companion on the planet. Although this film takes way farther in the future, in Predator Killer of Killers, they've established now that whenever you kill a Predator, well, the Yautja will actually kidnap you, freeze you, and then save you for whenever they need a little battle. And I guess she just would have been unfrozen in time to go along with Deck. I gotta be honest, as much as I liked Prey and Amber Midthunder, I don't know if I would have loved that idea, but it's also looking like it's a possible way that they could explain Arnold coming into the franchise again, because they said that's their holy grail idea, which honestly, I love Arnold, and he was great in that, but kind of what I really love about Badlands, it's not hinging on any nostalgia, any cameos, any big Easter egg teases like that. If anybody's going to come up with a great story for it, it'll probably be Dan Trachtenberg, so if that doesn't happen, I wouldn't mind it, but I am very curious what the ideas for the next movie, especially with his mother coming in, how even the Callus, because as much as I love Bud, I mean, that is an OP creature, and that's just one of Deck's tools now to fight something. I still want him to be a formidable warrior, even if it's in his own humanized way. So all this to say, I really like this direction. I understand, again, the people who don't absolutely love this idea because they'd rather just the Predators be mindless, one-dimensional killers. I think with Predator Killer of Killers, that animated movie existing, there's an avenue for us to still get those type of movies where you just set a Predator in a different location, have them fight off and be these bloodthirsty creatures. So I'm sure we'll still have that, but hey, I want to see where this goes. Could be somewhere cool. Here's where I throw it off to you guys, though. You saw Predator Badlands. What do you make of it? Are you happy with it? Things you love, didn't love, anything, everything. Be sure and like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.